Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to my first video on creative writing. We will be discussing this afternoon um, the following topics, which are what is technical and imaginative writing. What are its differences? We are also going to discuss what are imagery and sensory. So figures of speech will come on part 2 of this video. So for now, I will only be uploading part 1 of the video which we have discussed last Friday. For those who were not around, so you may watch this pre-recorded video. So I will now share my screen. Okay, so this afternoon we'll first define what is creative writing. Since creative writing is different from creative nonfiction, because of course in creative nonfiction usually we are going to write um, nonfiction stories in a creative way, but in creative writing it's more broad because you are allowed to also write literature or poetry, short stories, um, using fictional mga stories. So we'll first define what is creative writing. It is also known as the art of making things up. Creative writing is a vital part of modern society. Traditionally referred to as literature, creative writing is an art of sorts, the art of making things up. Its writing is done in a way that is not academic or technical, but still attracts an audience. Though the definition is rather loose, creative writing can, for the most part, be considered any writing that is original and self expressive. If you have noticed, class, creative writing is um, far different than what we are taught when we are going to write research paper or an academic paper. In writing a research paper and academic paper, it's really technical because there are guidelines that need to be followed. Scientific or technical terms must be used, and you are there to inform. In creative writing, it's the opposite because you are there to make things up, or maybe it's based on a real story, but you're going to write it in a way that it's creative and you're expressing your emotions. At the same time, it's entertaining to read. So what is the purpose of creative writing? The purpose of creative writing is both to entertain and share human experience, like love or loss. Usually, when you read stories from Langleaf, um, from Shakespeare, no, from other authors as well, you have noticed that most of them are very emotional when it comes to um, writing their poetry or writing scripts for their plays. At the same time, some of it is based on real emotions, or some of them are fictional. But when you read, you have this cathartic feeling na it's like you're also feeling what the authors are also feeling. So writers attempt to get at the truth about humanity through poetics and storytelling. So usually, people who would write creative stories are very good storytellers as well. Sometimes um, um, you would also be drawn in to the story. No, I have read some of the works of um, Paul Coelho. So he wrote the Alchemist, one of my favorite stories, and he was very good in writing his stories. No, and it also has a moral lesson. Inside of some of his short stories. So if you'd like to try your hand at creative writing, just keep in mind that whether you are trying to express a feeling or a thought, the first step is to use your imagination. Now, that is true. Although research is far more objective, but in creative writing, you're given the freedom to express your emotions. You're given the freedom to um, imagine. No, your imagination is limitless. Now, some of my favorite authors, such as Tolkien, who wrote Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, no, he made an entire world, no, a very vast world based on his imagination only, and it was beloved, no, by all of his readers. So there are different types of creative writing. So you have poetry, plays, movie and television scripts, fiction like novels, novellas, and short stories, songs, speeches, memoirs, and personal essays. So as long as you're using your imagination and your emotions to write, no, you can write different types of creative writing literature. So Post especially, no, Dan Brown is also one of my favorite authors. When he wrote, no, Da Vinci Code series, no, you have Angels and Demons, the Da Vinci Code, you have The Origin. No, you also have his other works such as Digital Fortress. No, the way his imagination works, no, although it's not emotional, some of it is quite informative actually. No, some of his novels include facts and fiction combined, because it was not actually a real happening, but it can happen in real life. No, when he wrote Inferno, no, he mentioned of a pandemic, no, that can wipe out humanity, but not in a sense nga it's a disease. No, it's more of um, letting people become infertile. No, um, also when he talked about antimatter, science, usually the facilities that he mentioned are real. No, but when it comes to the story of Robert Langdon, which is the protagonist, he was not actually a real person, but when it comes to the facilities that he've been to, or when they spoke of World Health Organization or the UN or the Vatican, most of them are actually true. No, he just mixed facts with fiction, but that is still part of creative writing because he is using his imagination. No, and he is there to entertain. No, his books are really entertaining, especially for those matured readers. No, I know some of you, no, likes to read teenage fiction, no, love stories, but when you read very mature material like Dan Brown's books, no, which is very political, no, centered on political and social and even psychological warfare, no, and it's really different. No, it boggles the mind. As you can see, some nonfiction types of writing can also be considered creative writing. That is true, no? Unlike creative nonfiction nga, it's purely on autobiography, memoirs, or let's say your personal experience, no? Writing essays based on your real experiences because it's nonfiction, no? Meaning it's real, but you are writing it in a creative way. In creative writing, it's both, no? You can write fictional and non-fictional stories. So it can also still be considered as part of um, creative writing, no, non-fiction um, writings, no, like memoirs and personal essays can be written creatively to inform your readers about your life in an expressive way. I'll give you an example, no. When we were made to write a personal essay, no, introducing ourselves, no, mentioning our achievements, no, our personal life. So my first introduction was, instead of saying, hello everyone, my name is Saiba Ann Ramirez, I'm from, instead of that, no, I wrote it in a creative way, which also attracts the attention of the reader. So the first part of my essay was, um, in fact, I am nothing, nothing but a piece of dirt. No, compared to people like Mahatma Gandhi and Barack Obama, I am nothing. But every day, I'm trying to matter. No, I'm trying to be someone who is happy and somehow important. So I was born in a not so um, important ka ano. So daghan na kay mga umar na ako introduction no nga kanang ngano ni sulti mo siya nga dili siya importante, or she is just a speck of dirt, because No, when she compares herself to people like Mahatma Gandhi, no, dili rin siya ka-reach silang level. At the same time, introducing siya. So, I was just an insignificant child born on January 24, 1997. But in my parents' eyes, I was the most important person. Oh. Mga ingana nga example, no, nga, it's written in a creative way. No? Although, you're beating around the bush because you're not really straight to the point, especially for those people nga, who are few, no, who has um, few words to say or few words to write, no, in his essay. Medyo maglisod jud ka, no, kay paliko-likoon jud nimo. But for those who have a very wide imagination, no, and is also a wide reader, vivacious reader, so who is who has a wide range of vocabulary, you can also play with words. So that is also one example. Okay, because these types are written in first person, it's easier for them to be creative. That is true. It's really difficult to write if you're in a third person view because you're only writing based on what you have seen or what you have witnessed on that person, because that person is actually the main subject of your story. But if you are the main subject of your story and you are explaining it in your own point of view, then that is more creative, no? The more you can easily express yourself. So these are the following techniques used in creative writing. So you can use character development. So it means that, for example, your protagonist or you started out as a very weak character, but later on, as the story progresses, no, you become a very strong and brave character. That's character development, meaning your character doesn't only remain the same all throughout the duration of the story, but your character develops, no? And that is good because there is growth. Next is plot development. So when you talk about plot development, not only the character develops or grows, but also, no, the plot. So at first, no, you have a very simple plot, then it becomes very complicated. The protagonist, no, or the main character becomes the antagonist or the villain, no, and there is a plot twist, no. Dan Brown, no, which I've mentioned is my favorite author, also plays, no, this kind of technique, no. He introduces us to a plot which we believe nga uh, we know what is the ending or the continuation of the story, but then no, he flips a card later on, no, my trump card the siya, that ending will never be the same, the I or let's say the plot that you have thought in the beginning changes in the end. So na yung mga plot twist, no, sometimes he likes to put a plot twist within a plot twist, no, and that keeps the reader going because no, it becomes a page turner, no. Instead of falling asleep because it's really boring, it's slow pace, you become very enthralled in reading. Vivid setting. When it comes to vivid setting class, no, Dan Brown is also no exception. Why? Because I keep mentioning Dan Brown. No, he has a very good example. I like his books. No, it challenges you, to understand, the story very well, and sometimes it's very alarming, put because some of his plot is or let's say can also happen in real life. When it comes to vivid setting class, he also mentions. Okay, so let's continue. Sorry for the interruption. Sabo jud kaayo ang kuwan. That is part, no, of working from home. So anyway, vivid setting. When we talk about vivid setting class, it talks about it's very detailed, no, when it comes to describing, no, a situation or a room. Let's say the main character enters a room. When he enters the room, all of the sensory or imagery is vividly um, written. Ito vividly written, gagmay nga details i-explain jud niya. Even the color, the way he feels nga the room seems eerie, no? And koan, no, ang smell ko, no, in the air is koan ko, no, medyo may pagka koan, naay murag distinguishing odor nga di ko na siya ka distinguishing odor nga di ko na siya ka point out, or very ominous ang setting. Umay ana no, very detailed kaayo. So dili na yun nga, when I enter the room, I don't feel happy or kon. Iya yung i-mention nga unsa yung nakita, unsa yung na-feel, iyahan nang i-explain in full detail. No? Very vivid. So, the reason why nga very detalyado kaayo si writer, it's because he would also want to make the readers feel no what the character feels. We also have the underlying theme. So, unsa man iyang theme no? Is it a horror genre, or like for example in Stephen King, when yeah, I actually have a book nga compilation siya sa tanan niyang mga short stories, but when I read the first chapter, first story pa lang no, wherein hapitan ni Ibalsamar ang buhi nga tao because he was paralyzed no, kay na paakan siya sa snake, and then they mistook it for a cardiac arrest unya. Hapit ata siya konya kana gani feeling nga he's lying there in the operating table sa morgue unya, mak, maka maka-feel, makadungog siya sa mga tao nga mo-operate unta niya. I-imagine nga you are alive but you can't move. No, so ang horror pa lang class no, which is very good kaayo pud si Stephen King sa vivid setting no, mobasa ka very in detail jud tanan unya manimbot yung balhibo no. So pagbasa pa lang daan ako sa sa second page or third page, nahadlok nako, no? I was actually worried for the character, and the setting that he gave was very ominous, no? Was very eerie and scary, although 4 or 5 people were there. But the setting is the way he explained, no, how dirty and how grim the morgue was, no, or how dark, no, the characters were uh portrayed no in that story. So medyo mo to siya no, ma-identify ni mo ang theme, it's horror no, it's gore ang iyang dili gore nga tigulang ha, gore gore no. So kanang things nga like for example no, like intestines coming out no, sorry for the, so kanang may ano na that's so kana pa pagbasa nimo daan maka-feel na dayon ka sa theme no. So iset jud ni writer no, if you would like to make it feel like a very happy story, then of course no, when it comes to the vivid setting, when it comes to writing the story, kuan na siya kanang very happy kay ang setting niya. Point of view. So it comes to point of view class, sa man sa third person or sa first person. Kung first person, no, ikaw jud mo narrate no sa imuhang na experience. Kung third person, ikaw mo narrate for the person. So meaning mo ikaw na galantaw din imuha lang isulti on sayang gipambuhat, no? Dialogue. So ga-include ba dialogue or purely narration lang? Or purely thoughts in your head lang, for example. Kung may dialogue class, for example, so tungkol sa story, magstoryahan na ang duha ka characters. So butang kag dialogue nilang duha. As if sila gastorya. Anecdotes, metaphors, similes, figures of speech, you are using flowery words, no? Sometimes figures of speech can also add interest no, towards the readers, such as when you read poems no, say magbutang sila mga figures of speech nga i-compare nila ang two unrelated things for each other. For example, my love is like a red red rose. So nga naman nga red red rose man yung i-compare niya ang love, din explain niya sa following stanzas dayon. Imaginative language, nadya po na dira ang sensory and imagery no. So my skin felt tingles or mga ana you know, emotional appeal. So of course, no, you're going to convey what the character has felt, no. So yung emotions iklaro rin mo daan sa and heavy description. So they're very much alike with vivid setting. No, very detailed nga pagka-describe. Okay, so now proceed to what are the differences between technical writing versus creative writing. Of course, the technical writing class such as a research paper, no, a thought, no, I thought paper can both be technical and creative. So you have a research paper, no, a marketing plan, no. It's based on facts, no. You're not making things up because, of course, you're there to inform, no. You are there to share your knowledge to others, and for you to share your knowledge to others or what you have discovered to others, it must be real or true, no. You're not there to entertain. Your main purpose is to inform. You have informative and instructional or persuasive. So again, no, it's very informative, it's very instructional. When you read, you are persuaded by that information that is given to you. It's clear, precise, and straightforward. It doesn't beat around the bush, no? It's really straight to the point. It goes directly with the facts, no? With the data. No, present na niya dayon. Dili na siya magbutag mga flowery words. It's objective. That's true because in order for you to write, no, um, technical works, or let's say a research paper, you must not be biased, because if you are biased, then it's not informative anymore, no? You have to be fair in your writing, and you're only going to base it on facts. Specialized vocabulary. So you have technical and scientific terms, no, that must be used. So English terms, it is really, although it's difficult to understand, but it's more on siyang formal jud siya kayo pagkasulat. No, magbasa ka, like it really convinces you it's true, because it really is true, no? And it's formal because your audiences mostly are very educated, no? Unlike in creative writing, it's for the masses. No, anyone can read it. Um, Next is, let's proceed to creative writing. In creative writing, you have fictional and imaginative. Of course, class, it's based on imagination and emotion. So you don't need to have facts, not unless if you're Dan Brown nga, you would like to have facts and fiction merged together, then that's okay. But that is still part of creative writing. But mostly, if you are there to entertain and you're only using your imagination, your emotions, then that's creative writing. It's entertaining, provocative, and captivating, no? You're there to captivate your readers because it's for the masses. You're there to entertain. Your writing is made for the purpose of course, enthralling your readers, no, or let's say captivating them, nga it will become a page turner, no, nga write up. You have artistic, figurative, symbolic, or even vague. So sometimes gani class, no, compared to technical writing, it needs to have a very clear data, no, has to be straightforward. Sorry, my microphone was off the entire time. um Unlike sa technical writing class, no, nga it has to be straightforward, no? When you are presented with facts, no, you have to interpret right away. No, dito din kasi interpretation, no, presente na nimo sa creative writing. It's really vague sometimes because it will create an ending, wherein the reader gets to decide now what will be the fate of the character, no, in the end of the story. No, so you are given an open ended nga ending, no? It's open ended because you get to decide, no, what will happen, or what will happen to it keeps you guessing, no, nga unsa kaha to, no, what do you think is the possible outcome, nga ana, no? So na mga cliffhangers. It's very symbolic because they sometimes use symbols, no, to represent, like for example, no, in The Godfather, every time that a tangerine or orange is in a scene, no, it's ominous because it will be an indication someone will die. Muna kalabanan, or in the movies such as Star Wars, no, wherein the antagonist always wears dark clothing, no, to symbolize nga he is evil. So those are kinds of symbolic ng um mga parts, no, sa creative write up. It's figurative, sometimes uses figures of speech, no, and it's very artistic. So it's written in a way nga, of course, no, it introduces you to a different kuanim, kay ka plot twist in the end. So sometimes magliko-liko pa siya usahay. It's subjective because you're using your emotions. No, you're allowed to be subjective because it will be purely based on your own point of view, no, as a writer. So you don't need facts, no, to justify your write up. Generalized vocabulary because it is meant for the masses, no, for the general audience. Unlike specialized vocabulary, because most of your readers are um educated, no, in generalized vocabulary anyone can read it, no. So even no simple folks lang nga ganahan sila ma-entertain, no? They would like to um also read new stories, then they can easily understand. Next, we have key differences. In creative writing, the most of the part is self-created, although the idea might be inspired, but in technical writing, the facts are to be obliged and the note is delivered from leading on what previously other greats have concluded. Most commonly, the creative writing is for general audience and for masses, but technical writing is for a specific audience. The creative writing entertains people as it has poetry or some illustrations or another idea, whereas the technical writing causes boredom. It follows a strong pattern based on facts and is just to transfer the information to the audience. In technical writing, the specialized vocabulary such like scientific terms and others are used, while in creative writing, one can go with slang or evocative phrases or even something which can be perceived well by the audience. Humor, satire might be useful essences in creative writing, but such thoughts or ideas have no link with technical writing. So to summarize, creative writing is different to academic or technical writing. Writing for websites is different to writing for newspaper columns. That is true. Usually when you write for websites, especially blogs, no, um, it's more on entertainment purposes. Writing for newspaper columns is you are there to inform, although there are entertainment parts pud sa newspaper, but mostly people would read for the news in the newspaper because they would like to be informed, no, or to be updated with the recent happenings. Journal entries are different to writing press releases on behalf of a brand. Writing purposes do vary. It's important that when you are undertaking any writing, you have a firm grasp on this concept. That is true. If your main purpose is to inform or to find out the truth, then you have to proceed with technical or academic writing. But if your purpose is to express your emotions or your ideas, no, because um, you're feeling very sentimental or emotional and you would like to write a poem, no, out of those emotions, then you could proceed with imaginative or creative writing. So let's look at the fundamental differences between academic and creative writing to further grasp, no, on the ideas and the differences between the two. So style is a chief difference between academic and creative writing. In creative writing, that is true, there are no specific style parameters. You are free to write, no, as long as um, your your imagination and your emotion, no, will lead you to write. In academic writing, you have a structure guideline. No, that is why when we write our paper, no, we need to have our research paper. We need to have a proper format. No, we need to also adhere to um, what are the styles and formats, no, especially in academic writing. For example, it must be in Times New Roman 12, a font size 12, no, it must be justified, double space, and then for each content of the paper, no, there must be a guideline as well on how to write. No, you're not just going to write your statement of the problem based on what you think is the statement of the problem. You need to really study, no, how to write a statement of the problem or a hypothesis. No, so it must be studied. So one kind of writing, academic writing, is rigid. No, it's not flexible. It's procedural, purpose purely to convey knowledge, data, and information. It's orderly, organized, and follows a formula. The other kind of writing, which is creative writing, is inspired, artistic, and entertains with word pictures, concepts, and deep meaning. It's very enjoyable to read. No, it touches us while teaching us. It's an art. No, in creative writing, no, it's not really a necessity to learn how to write a creative writing because it's innate, no, murag if we have these emotions and we put them into writing, mo flow ra jud na siya class. But in academic writing, you need to master it, and not anyone can master it. No, that's true. That's why in graduate school, no, when we are made to make our own separate paper individually. There are some nga wala nakapadayon jud because no, it's not easy to master. No, it doesn't really happen overnight. No, so everyone is encouraged to master it, but it takes time. no? So in academic writing, it would give you good grades. In creative writing, it will get you published. So academic writing must be taught, no, in senior high and in college, and when you take your postgraduate degrees, di na mawala ang research method, no, nga subject, or you are taught on how to write a research paper. But in creative writing, it's optional, meaning as long as you know what are the elements of a poem, and then um how to na may freestyle ging a poem sa pagusto ra jud mo, no? So as long as you use your imagination, then there is no limit. So overall, creative writing allows for more personal expression, but in academic writing requires more factual evidence for support, but they each have their own purpose. Let's now proceed to sensory details in writing, definition, and examples. So not all sensory and imagery will be discussed in this video. Again, this will be a two-part video. We will cut this into two, no, because of the length of the video. So the writer's ability to create a gripping and memorable story has much to do with engaging our five senses. So sensory details include sight, sound, touch, smell, and taste. Writers employ the five senses to engage a reader's interest. If you want your writing to jump off the page, then bring your reader into the world you are creating. When describing a past event, try and remember what you saw, heard, touched, smelled, and tasted. Then incorporate that into your writing. So think about, no, your favorite experience, and then remember, no, what you have seen, what you have touched, what you have smelled, and what you have tasted, no, if nabadyo kayo natilawon nga food, no, at that time. So when you use sensory details, your readers can personally experience what you are trying to describe. When you talk about sweet food, then they are also going to imagine, no, the sweetness of that food. If you're going to describe what you have seen, no, um, the scenery that you have seen, they would also, no, imagine that. So reminding them of their own experiences, giving your writing a universal feel. So your readers cannot connect to you if you do not use sensory or imagery. So if you're going to pursue creative writing, no, so universal quality is really important. So it is conveyed when the writer is able to connect, no, with the readers. So about sensory details, there is no one sense that's more important than another. It all depends on the scene you're trying to create. However, imagery, the sight sense, is a common feature in vivid writing. That is true, no? Ang pinaka-common jud kas when it comes to imagery is ang sight, no? Unsay iyang nakita, i-explain jud niya vividly unsay iyang nakita. Touch, yung na-feel, kung nasumbagan mo siya dira, or unsay iyang nahikapan, ihapon nang i-explain. Ang smell of taste, medyo dili pa kaayo siya ing ana ka very common, but no, authors will also use that. Pero pinaka-common is sight dyan, usually. So I'll give you an example. Now, here's a first passage without sensory details. I went to the store and bought some flowers. Then I headed to the meat department. Later, I realized I forgot to buy bread. So does this article pull you in? Of course, no, it doesn't. No, it's not really that interesting to read. So you cannot actually connect, no, with the writer. But when we read, no, this one with sensory details, like upon entering the grocery store, I headed directly for the flower department, where I spotted yellow tulips. As I tenderly rested the tulips in my rusty shopping cart, I caught a whiff of minty dried eucalyptus. So I added the fragrant forest green bouquet of eucalyptus to my cart. While heading for the meat department, I smelled the stench of seafood, which made my appetite disappear. So see how extra details can make the scene come to life. No? So, ma-feel rin mo yung na-feel nga, pag na-imagine to mo nga na nakita nimo tong mga yellow tulips nga very vibrant, no, mo imagine nga ikaw po dito nagdala kag shopping cart, and then nakita nimo tong yellow kay nga tulips, no, nya na imagine na nimo nga nasa mga basket and you're in a supermarket, then nakita po ka nakasimhot po ka og minty dried eucalyptus, and then imong ibutang sa cart, and then imo pong na-imagine ang smell sa langsa sa seafood, no, yeah, which is ikaw po mismo maka-connect ka, na maka-relate ka sa writer because you have imagined all of these things. Not unless if you're handicapped, of course, no? So, dili po nato makuan. O bitaw, it's really difficult, no, right, mohatag silang makan nga. If you are going to write an essay nga wherein imagery siya and you are blind, how are you going to write it? So that's really difficult because especially no sight is really important no, for you to um use the sense of sight in your sensory and imagery no sa pagsulat, no. So mo na siya. So writing with the senses is an important part of writing well. Adjectives bring writing to life and pull the reader into the text and help activate his or her imagination. Sensory details help the reader feel like he or she was there and create a more intimate connection to the narrator or writer and a greater understanding of the text. Adjectives help set the mood and tone in the text and help establish a strong voice. So we will now proceed, no, with the second video. I will upload it maybe within this week, no, during your examination siguro, on language use in creative writing. So there will be following examples, no, using sounds, visuals, scent, that will be discussed in the second video. So again, no, for those who haven't seen the video or haven't participated pa no because of their internet connection lo ipog tayo no wala ka attend sa ako ang klase pag Friday, pwede kay mo kalantawan ning pre-recorded video no sa ako ang gi-discuss. So last time I wasn't able to discuss this one pero sa katong kuan naka-attend pag online pwede pa mo walanta maminaw ani no kay wala dyan ako ni na-discuss sa Friday and then na-discuss na ko siya karon sa video. So anyway, thank you so much students. Your module 2 deadline will be on September 18. So I will also be giving you siguro next week na lang or sa Saturday ang module 3 no because you have your examinations man pod on Thursday and Friday. So thank you so much for watching class and goodbye everyone.